Senator Julian Cyr joins us in studio for a State House update, a signed budget, funds for the Cape and Islands, and a new task force for drinking water quality. Well, the session has ended on Beacon Hill, and big news from Julian Cyr. Welcome.
Paula, good to be with you. Happy August.
Happy August. This is just crazy that the summer is just blowing really quick, but we all know that real summer for Cape Codders begins in September anyways.
It does. It does. I can't wait. But this has been a summer for the record books already, and we're just in August. And you know, certainly with the extreme weather we've had here in Barnstable, across Barnstable, and Yarmouth, Dennis, Harwich, and Chatham, the 3 tornadoes we had. You know, when I got into this business, you know, you're always worried about you know, hurricanes and nor'easters. We're not used to tornadoes here, and the devastation was really severe. I mean, you know, something that I haven't, you know, in the 2 square miles in Harwich and the pockets of in Osterville and Hyannis, South Yarmouth, Dennis, you know, looks very much like a hurricane. What was remarkable is how quickly we bounced back. You know, when I saw this devastation and was out there, and the governor came down, and we had Senator Markey and a whole host of folks, you know, didn't expect that, you know, this happened on a Tuesday, that it would be back to full power, you know, by Friday morning. You know, so a real tremendous response. I think the piece that I continue to be concerned about is the lost business. You know, small businesses, especially restaurants, folks in food service, you know, you lost power for a few days. That means your walk-in, you know, your walk-in failed. You know, you probably lost a lot of product that you had in inventory. So those losses plus the closed business. So thrilled, you know, we've been working with hand in glove with the administration, with the whole delegation to make sure we respond. The Mass Capital Growth Corporation actually has issued $1 million in a loan program to small businesses. We'll have more information on my website about that. You know, but really kind of impressed how we were able to really sort of rally and get open back for business. But I think this does show, we really need to get serious about climate resiliency. Climate disruption is here. Every Cape Codder knows that. You live that. And so I'm really eager, I think, this fall when we come back from the session to take up some climate resiliency legislation. The House has taken action. I'd like to see the Senate take action. The House did $1 billion over 10 years. I'd like to see us do $2 billion over 10 years. You know, when you open up, I was reading the New York Times, and when Barnstable is listed as the top 10, you know, locations in the country for costs related to climate preparedness and resiliency and the effects of climate disruption, you know, that's big. So we've got lots of work to do, but really relieved that there were no serious injuries with the tornadoes. You know, our municipalities and our first responders and DPW workers and National Guard and you know, the utility and many others, you know, neighbors just kind of getting out the chainsaw and helping to clear roads was pretty remarkable. But glad we're back in business.
Back in business, and you know, having been through Hurricane Bob in '91, you know,
Me too.
Looking at that devastation, you know, I had visions of a week or 2 without power in certain areas of the Cape, and you know, good to see Eversource with their tree trimming has worked a little bit. It wasn't as many power lines, just in that small area there, and then obviously we're Cape Cod strong.
Yeah, and Eversource had over 700 utility crews on the ground.
Yes.
Remarkable, but you know, I remember, Bob, we were out of power in Toronto for 10 days.
Yeah.
But of course, I was a little kid, so at the time I thought all the trees down were fun. But much to the chagrin of my poor parents, we're trying to run a restaurant and, you know, no water and all that stuff. But glad everyone's all right, and we are Cape Cod strong.
Excellent. And the budget seemed to have passed and gotten through all of its
all the hurdles. It's signed into law, and there are some pretty big accomplishments in this budget. I wasn't happy that it was late. This is a bad habit we've gotten into beyond Beacon Hill. But what's in the budget is really powerful, and I was really proud. All total in the budget, I was able to deliver $7.37 million in resources, both statewide and here on the Cape. $750,000 of that is here on Cape Cod. For instance, $45,000 to the Barnstable Police Department to continue the work that the Community Impact Unit is doing around addressing the homeless population here, especially those really chronically homeless folks that we can't get into services. We first did the program last year, and they helped about 40 homeless individuals. 20 of those individuals, so about half, actually got connected into services, which is kind of a big deal.
Right.
So proud of that. There's a lot more in there. And then more broadly, some pretty important statewide initiatives, mostly focused on the opiate epidemic, and also focused on mental health. And so with the opiate epidemic, I filed an amendment which was adopted in the Senate. We got it to the final budget. It's $5 million in new dollars, all for harm reduction strategies, right? So everything we can do to help keep people alive and keep people safe. Those are resources that we're going to see here in Hyannis. We'll see it across the Cape. But that's really something I think when we look at, the more we learn about, and as the more we grapple with this epidemic, keeping people alive and safe is what we need to do. And so, access to Narcan, syringe access, keeping people safe. These are pretty important pieces. Looking at fentanyl test strips and fentanyl testing. So if you're looking at the drug supply, unfortunately, more and more fentanyl's in everything, which is terrifying.
Right.
And so this is a pretty big effort from the state, and something I'm really proud to have been a part of. And then also filed $1 million to increase funding to the Department of Mental Health around their housing voucher program. And with this $1 million addition, they're basically going to eliminate their wait list for housing. So 80 people are going to get housing. These are some of the most vulnerable, mentally ill, challenged folks in the state. So really proud to have been part of that, and lots of good things in this budget. And so just glad it's done, and glad it's signed into law, and looking forward to seeing those dollars get to work in our community.
Right. So you talk about, there's lots of things in that budget, but there's one reoccurring theme throughout Cape Cod, which is water quality.
Yep.
Whether it's nitrogen loading in our embayments or emerging contaminants of concern. What's going on with that right now?
So there's a few pieces. One is implementation of the Cape Anons Water Protection Fund. This was landmark legislation that we passed last session. The entire delegation got behind this, creating a funding mechanism to implement what's called the 208 plan. So we got a $4 billion wastewater problem on Cape Cod. And through this program, the state's going to pitch in $1 billion, and we're funding that through occupancy, both on short-term rentals and also on traditional occupancy. The other piece we got to look at is around drinking water, and folks here in Barnstable and Hyannis specifically know a lot about contaminants and contaminants of concern. One of those being PFAS and PFOAs. These are the emerging contaminants associated with actually a whole host of consumer products. Actually, a lot of adhesives that you use in your home actually have PFAS in them.
Teflon, wrappers for your hamburger.
Yep. Also, firefighting foam. Right. And so as folks know, here in Hyannis, this has been a huge concern. I filed a bill along with my colleague, Representative Kate Hogan, who represents Stowe, so like a north central community of the state, who's also struggling with PFAS, to create a task force to move swiftly to get the state to really get our handle on this. What communities are impacted? What's the cost? How do we begin to remediate this? The town of Barnstable and the Hyannis Water District has spent, millions and going on tens of millions on this problem. And so I really think the state should be doing its part. So proud to file the bill, hoping to see it advance out of committee and something we can get to work on soon so the task force can be convened, we can get some recommendations and move forward on this issue. But water is when you live on a peninsula that's essentially a sand deposit from glaciers, water's key to how we make our lives here, to how we make our living here, and making sure our drinking water is safe and is a quality water supply is really critical.
Really is. So you're back on terra firma here on Cape Cod for a month or so?
The goal is I hopefully don't have to go over the bridge, at least for a month, because we're on recess. So it's a beautiful time to be here, and just looking forward to, like all Cape Codders, right, enjoying it, trying to get to the beach, avoiding the traffic, and looking forward to when summer really starts in September.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Paula. Always a pleasure.
Take care. Representative